The Fletch Cast. It's genetics.
Club members, welcome. I'm Michael Fletcher, and this is the Fletch Cast. It's great to have you back again. It's great to have you here. Podcast number 4. I'm pretty stoked. One of the things that we're going to cover this week is obviously the election in this country, which we kind of concluded. In theory, unless you don't believe in math, which would be consistent with like not believing in science. But one thing this election taught me, and we're going to talk at great length about, is it establishes once again that club members, multiculturalism isn't just the future, it's the present. We, people like us, people who are in multicultural relationships, people who are have interracial children, interracial families, we are deciding this world, and we are deciding it in a positive, hopeful manner. But it also comes what comes with that is a responsibility, and the fact that we are where we're at this point in history is important. But I also think it's important that we do some other stuff as we move forward. With regard to, I was talking to someone this week, and he said, "Well, what are multicultural people really doing?" What I said to him was, "What else you need us to do?" I mean, it's this week. The United States has been around a while, and multicultural community has produced the first female vice president of the United States of America. Now, I know that that's somewhat of a small position and doesn't have much authority or responsibility, but it's significant. I mean, think about that this week, Kamala Harris was elected as America's vice president. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, or whatever, you have to recognize the significance of that. What I love about Kamala Harris is that it also helps us to define and to explain multiculturalism. Her father is Jamaican and her mother is Indian. One thing we strive for on the Fletchcast is to broadly define what multiculturalism is, because that broad definition is what gives us so much strength. It's what gives us so much depth of field. It's also what formulates the basis of our being able to do things across the board and across communities, not a Southern thing or a Democratic thing or a Republican thing, but as a feeling, an agenda that is frankly based upon our collective experience. What we try to do is bring people together. And the fact that Kamala Harris, the first female vice president of the United States, happens to be Indian and West Indian is amazing. It's incredible, and it shows what we can do. And, obviously before Kamala, there was another club member, Barack Obama, who, as we all know, I watched him speak the other day, and a friend of mine looked at me and said, "Oh, this is what a president sounds like." And so we have that history. We have that shared experience, but we have, again, additional proof as to what it is that we as a multicultural community can do. It's exciting as fuck, frankly. And that one of the reasons I love this show is because we're going to talk about that, and we're going to use that experience to move people forward. We're also going to use it to brag some. So this will be the bragging episode. Now, I love Formula One racing, and primarily I love Formula racing because, again, another club member is the greatest Formula One racer ever, Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is, last week he won his 92nd F1 race, which put him ahead of Michael Schumacher, who was amazing. Michael Schumacher was not a club member. Lewis is a club member. We think tomorrow or Sunday, Lewis Hamilton will win his 7th F1 world title. I mean, think about that. F1 started in 1950. Lewis Hamilton is literally the only multicultural participant, really one of the few minority participants, and he is now the winningest racer in all of F1. Again, back to this premise of what it is that we as multicultural people can do. It's again, it's the breadth of our experience. It's what we do. It's what we've been through. It's this desire to just be great for whatever reason. It's extraordinary when you think about it. Think about Lewis Hamilton, literally the greatest F1 racer of all time. That's who we have. That's the same week that we elect Kamala Harris as vice president. It's also, and by the way, this doesn't even get us into Sunday. I mean, Sunday, we, I guess we could talk about Patrick Mahomes, who's amazing, or we could talk about Russell Wilson, who's amazing. Certainly could talk about Colin Kaepernick, who is, as we progress through history, and you hate to, make it so dramatic, but Colin Kaepernick's stand for, and again, it wasn't necessarily racial, against racial prejudice. It was against police brutality directed at minorities. As we progress, Colin Kaepernick's name is going to go down as one of the leading examples of people doing something to make the world a better place, and a club member. I mean, again, it's you can't tell me that we have this consistent number of club members, of multicultural, multiracial people doing amazing things. And the reason that happens is because of who we are. It's who we are. And so I am, I think it's important that we emphasize our leadership role in politics and sports and business, because I think we have to. I think it's important, particularly now moving forward, and understand we may be heading into a constitutional crisis in this country. And again, we try to stay away from politics here because, it is what it is. But a constitutional crisis isn't politics. It's a crisis in our country. The importance of multicultural leadership and participation, it can't be understated. It can't be understated, particularly today where we literally have a president who says he may not leave. We have an attorney general who has suggested that people be investigated for voter fraud that doesn't exist. This role, our role as leaders in this country, as leaders certainly in our community, but more important, as leaders in this country, we have to do it. We have to do it. On a more practical level, the reason I wanted to emphasize our role in government and in sports and in business is because what I want us to improve our lives and to improve the lives of our kids and people around us. And so one of the other names I want to emphasize today is the name of Jeff Wood. Jeff Wood is a Caucasian principal at Rogers Elementary School in Long Beach, California. Why is that name important? Why is that school important? It's important because of this. This week, we'll put this up on the screen. Mark will get this up. I want to show you this text. This was sent to a 12-year-old interracial girl from a 12-year-old Caucasian boy. And as you could say, it says, and this is very diplomatic, "Whore, you ugly bitch. Nigger, nigger, nigger." That text was sent to a 12-year-old interracial girl in Long Beach. Jeff Wood is the principal of Rogers Elementary School, who this text was brought to. I spoke to Mr. Wood yesterday and said, why is this obvious rapist to be? How is this person still in school when he's calling a 12-year-old girl a whore and a nigger and a nigger? Jeff Wood says, well, we can't prove that he said that. As you can see from the text, it's very clear that he said that. It was stunning beyond belief, because it really shows the difficulty that exists today for all of us. But here's the difference. This is an interracial kid. And one thing that we're going to do at the Fletchcast is we are going to make sure that we collectively take action to protect our kids, to protect our community. This kid, by the way, is a pretty good kid. I kind of like her. She's my kid. My kid. I was, when I saw this text, I was floored. I just could not believe. I guess I could believe the text was sent because of stupidity of kids. It's the fact that a principal of a school in Long Beach, California, would look at this very text and take no action against this person. I explained to the principal, I said, my daughter is being forced to be in a class with a person who made hate speech to her, that if he were 17, he'd be charged with a hate crime, that in every context, in every sense of the word, is a frightening young man. I mean, think about this. And one reason I'm not going to name the kid is if you're saying fucking whore at 11 or 12, I'm guessing you're just parroting what you hear at home. And I feel bad for the kid. But when you have a principal of a junior high in Long Beach, California, making excuses and not taking action against this person, it's just not right. I spoke with Mr. Wood, and he said, well, you know, we have to give people due process. I said, well, there's due process, and then there's safety of children. This idea that young interracial children can be treated this way, we can't tolerate it. One of the reasons we're doing this show is because what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. We're not going to ask you to do anything. We don't need the government to do anything. We can control our lives. And that starts with having a zero tolerance for Caucasian principals who would literally excuse a horrific. Think about this. If you got that text, would you? Yeah, I mean, that would get your ass kicked in 2/3 of the states in America. And this goes to a principle, and it was amazing. Here's the other troubling part about this, and this is again for Mr. Wood at Rogers Elementary. I invite you to call him and to send the Long Beach School District a text saying, how dare you coddle a Caucasian 12-year-old who is so disturbed that he would say, how dare you do that? But here's the other galling part about this. I guarantee you that if a young 12-year-old male of color sent the exact same text to a Caucasian girl, I assure you Mr. Woods would not let that young male of color stay in school. I know that he wouldn't. And here's one. I can't prove the same facts would produce some result, but I can prove that similar facts were. Because 9 months ago, a brave, smart 11-year-old multicultural girl, while at a Long Beach school, stepped in and helped another multicultural girl who had just been attacked by an 11-year-old Caucasian boy. 9 months ago, 11-year-old Caucasian boy walks up to an interracial girl, shoves her on the ground. There's no dispute about this, boy. Shoves her onto the ground and is standing over her, yelling at her. And this 11-year-old girl picked up a dodgeball and threw it, hit the little assaulting child, hit him in the face. Bam! Hit him in the face. I know what you're thinking. Nice throw. I thought the same thing. I was like, that's a great throw. And especially when I learned who the 11-year-old girl was who did it. It was my daughter, Callista Fletcher, the same young woman who was called a nigger, whore, and whatever other names they came up with. This is an absolute, accurate, clear story. And what was most amazing to me is when I found out, the reason I found out about Callista stepping in and helping her friend who was literally being attacked on a school ground, middle of the daytime. I mean, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. White kid runs up, shoves a little 11-year-old interracial girl on the ground and is standing over her and yelling, and nobody does anything. No teacher, no Principal Wood, nobody except for an 11-year-old interracial girl named Callista Fletcher. And I was immensely proud of her. But the story it got worse from there, because the reason I found out about it is Long Beach School District wanted to suspend my daughter for throwing the ball and stopping the physical assault against the other 11-year-old interracial girl. Callista was 11 at the time. She's 12 now. I found out about this, and I couldn't believe it. I literally went and met with the then superintendent of Long Beach and said, let me get this straight. My daughter, actively intercedes to stop it. This isn't a verbal assault. This is a physical assault. It is assault and battery of a boy against a girl on a playground. Callista steps up, comes and helps this young woman, and Callista's penalized. The school then explained to me that, well, she wasn't being penalized. She just couldn't play Foursquare anymore. And I said, well, I don't even know what Foursquare really is, but Callista really wants to play it. But most importantly, Callista should be rewarded. She steps in and helps an interracial kid pushed on the ground, helps a girl who's being attacked by a misogynistic 11-year-old Caucasian male, and Callista is the one who's punished. And here we are again 9 months later. 9 months later, this time it's Callista being verbally assaulted by a disturbed, I guess he's 12-year-old. And instead of Long Beach taking immediate action, they require Callista to be in class with the same child who made these horrific statements, I'm not even sure. I'm more bothered by calling a 12-year-old a cunt and a whore. I mean, it's extraordinary. And that's if we exclude the nigger. My kid has enough self-esteem. She doesn't care what a white kid says to her, and nor should she. But the fact of the matter is that this kid is allowed to exist in school, and he's the victim. Ron Wood, he's not in the Rolling Stones, by the way. Mr. Wood says, well, we can't prove it. You can prove it. You believe a victim of assault. That's what you do. And I assure you that if this were a different kid, if this were, again, an African-American, a Latino, an interracial boy, he would be kicked out of school. He would at least not be allowed to play Foursquare, which is the penalty that Callista received. We good? The reason this is important, aside from a lot of things, is that we really, really, really have to make sure that with all this other craziness going on, that we at minimum, as a multicultural community, we protect each other. We stand up for each other. It's like when we were talking about, the Kim Kardashian and the Kylie Jenner, the WAP video. It's important that we say, we're just not going to tolerate that. At minimum, we expect that you're going to treat us not worse than other people. And this situation where again, what's ironic is two interracial girls in Long Beach, one is physically assaulted, the other one is sent just a horrific text, and nothing happens. What does that mean about kids who don't have two parents at home? What does that mean? What do you have to do in the Long Beach Unified School District to be kicked out of school for assault? What do you have to do to be considered, you have to be suspended because you called someone a nigger, or whore, cunt? This is serious stuff, and we're not going to tolerate it. And the way we stop it is we start acting now. And that's what we're going to do. So this is an important process. We just got vice president, but here's the better part is these guys may have just pushed down the next female president of the United States of America. The way we as club members are doing things, that's what we seem to be doing. That is the Fletch cast for today. It's our 4th episode. We're going to be back next week. Next week, got a real cool guest. This guy is one of the top lawyers in America, and he has a story that is fucking shocking. So, thank you. Produced by the Laugh Bureau in association with Mark Samuel Media.
The Fletch cast. It's genetics.